I'm at least aware of it now. So I am thinking about that too.
Do you look back and see specific points in the road where there was a fork and you went this way and it was all for the benefit of good?
Well, I think some things were better than others. I think I made some somewhat dubious romantic choices over the years, especially since I didn't come out until I was 50. So wish I'd done that a little bit sooner. Um, I think that most of my career has happened in a very serendipitous manner, probably for the first, so I graduated college in 1983. I would say it wasn't until my early to mid 40s that I really began to get a sense of what I wanted, what I could do. Prior to that, I was very much sort of flying in the wind, going this way, going that way, whichever way the wind took me, whichever way it blew, I would tend to follow. I wasn't really living intentionally, mostly because I didn't think that I was capable of achieving all that much. And so whatever opportunity came up, I figured was just the opportunity. So the last opportunity for employment, or the last opportunity for love, or the last opportunity for any number of things. I remember being in Israel a little bit after I turned 30, probably 32 years old, and I recently left a job and wasn't sure what kind of job I was going to get in the future, but I had taken some time off to travel. And I remember being at the Wailing Wall crying, not because of the sadness of the Wailing Wall so much, although of course that inspired it and provoked it, but then it sort of turning into a general overall cry about the state of my life and feeling terrified that at 32 I was unemployable and could never support myself again. And that's a palpable moment. And I use that as an example of thinking about myself in a way that isn't realistic. And that's a good example, because obviously I was employable. I did get many jobs since then, but it felt so real and it felt so foreboding and terrifying that it didn't feel like it could be anything but the most real thing in the world. And it's a good example of I think how I could talk myself into feeling a certain way that might not be accurate.
Humans have a hard time, really hard time predicting the future. That
Right. Oh
we
yeah.
there was a study and they were asking these people, how do you think at your age now, I think there were 30-year-olds, do you think you have it figured out? And like, yes, I have it figured out. 5 years ago, I was a mess, but I have self-actualized and I've got it all figured out. And then they followed up 5 years later and, do you have things figured out? Like, yes, I was totally wrong. I had it, nothing. And this goes on and on. Like we feel it's something comforting about trying to convince ourselves that we have reached a state of stasis. It's too scary not to know what the future is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very rare for people to think of a future where if you make a change in your current, that you're not going to somehow have less in the future. We don't tend to think about things that haven't yet manifested as possible. And as a result, it puts us in a state of paralysis about making any change because we don't want to lose anything. We just want to gain things. And so that can actually be really detrimental to making any kind of evolution or pivot or to try to reinvent yourself in any way. It's like, what will I lose instead of what will I potentially gain? Because there is no certainty to the gaining, there's only certainty to the losing.
I want to ask you your opinion about the power of words. I look at your art and design, and it's very much tied to text in the written word. When I hear you tell your story of how and why you met Roxanne, it kind of pivots on you reading her words and really feeling touched. Tell me about the power of words.
Well, I think words help us define and construct our reality. I think that, I mean, I happen to have a love affair with words. I love writing them. I love reading them. I love seeing them, being entertained by them, and being surrounded by them. Literally, my whole house is, I call it the house of type because so much is written on whatever it is that I have. I love to just see words, but I think that they're symbols that can communicate what is, what we want it to be, future scenarios, past scenarios, alternative scenarios. I think that imagination is brought to life through words, and anything is possible in the construction of those words.
I read that you said that you fell in love with Roxanne while you were reading Hunger. I read that you said, so I sort of fell in love with Roxanne while I was reading Hunger, and it was mostly because I felt like she was writing my own story in so many ways. I felt that somehow she'd gotten into my head without even knowing me and described my soul.
Yes, that is true. That is exactly true.
You know, I was listening to the interview that you and Roxanne did with Brene-Brown. The story of how you pursued Roxanne it's really amazing. I guess, you know, folks on the podcast can go find that episode if they want the long version. But I thought it was really funny in that story that there winds up being like this branding parable. You figured out right off the bat that this was somebody you felt like you needed to know. But your ability to get that first date with Roxanne really hinged on your mutual friend Ashley's recommendation, right?
Yeah, Ashley Ford, yes.
So much so that, I mean, Roxanne showed up to your first date having not even done any research based purely on Ashley's endorsement, right?
Yes.
So
she didn't Google me at all. Yeah, she didn't even know what I looked like.
So it feels like there's like some key business concepts there about how consumers make choices, right? I mean, it kind of goes back to branding. Like it was all about, you know, Roxanne's understanding and trust in Ashley's opinion, right?
Yeah, yeah. So she was giving me an endorsement.
So you got 5 stars, and so you got married during COVID, right?
Yes, yes. We had planned to have a beautiful big wedding. Gloria Steinem had agreed to marry us. We were going to get married on October 10th, 2020, which was a beautiful date, you know, 10/10/2020. And then COVID hit, and we all went on lockdown in March of 2020. And we realized probably by April or May that there was just no way that wedding was going to happen. We had not sent out save the date cards yet, so we didn't have to retract anything, but you know, we lost a lot of deposits that we weren't able to get back just because of the times. So we weren't sure exactly what we were going to do. We initially thought we would postpone it for a year, but that didn't turn out to be an idea that was good either. But back in June of 2020, I have cousins that live in California, and I was with Roxanne in California at her house. And my cousins were coming for the weekend. They were driving from Santa Cruz to Los Angeles. And the morning after they got here, Roxanne and I were just relaxing, hanging out in the living room. Kenny and Eileen were taking a walk. And she just looked at me and said, "Hey, why don't we get married this afternoon? You know, since Eileen and Kenny are here, you know, that would be, at least we'd have some family." And then we quickly called one of my best friends, Dee Dee Gordon, and her husband, Moses Brookson, the photographer. They came too. We were really lucky. We had a photographer. And then we FaceTimed our families. We didn't give them any notice because we didn't plan on this. So I literally called both my brothers. I texted them, and one wrote back, "We're in the middle of something. Can we call you back in an hour?" And I was like, "No." And then my other brother didn't respond to me at all. So I texted his son, my nephew, who was 12 at the time. And I said, "Can you tell your dad to answer his phone?" And he's like, "Oh, Daddy's taking a nap."
Oh my gosh.
Wake him up. And so, yeah, we pulled everybody together really fast and got married at a place called InstantMarriageLA.com. We went to like a little strip mall and an office building and got hitched.
That's wonderful. My wife and I, we decided to have a small wedding and, you know, a short engagement. And it was, you know, it was lovely. I remember the whole time we were thinking, you know, it's really not about, I mean, you want that day to be special, and we wanted it to be with family. And if we didn't want it to be with family, we would have totally eloped. But at the end, we were like, you know, it's not about this one day. It's about our future, right? And like
Yes.
we just wanted the future to start as soon as possible, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So can we talk about art for a second?
Please.
Here, I understand that you love art and that you and Roxanne are building a really nice collection. And so
Yes.
I have come across some names of that you have collected. Jenny-Holzer, Julie Moretu, Jenny Seville, Andy Warhol, Marilyn Minter, Tracy-Emin. These are great names. What?
Yes, I've been collecting for 30 years, I
Oh,
should point
wow.
out. Roxanne just got the bug after meeting me and has built a really remarkable collection in a very short period of time. I took a slightly different approach in that I started 30 years ago and just started one piece at a time
Sure.
and have been continuing in that way ever since.
What attracts you to a particular piece of art? How does it speak to you? What are you looking for?
I really love conceptual art. And so initially, a lot of my collection was built on collecting pieces by Lawrence-Weiner, Robert Barry, Douglas Hubler, Jenny-Holzer, as you've mentioned, Barbara Kruger, ed-ruscha, anybody that was making art with words.
Right.
And I still do that too, to a great degree. I have a small oyo sculpture by Deborah Cass, and I really am attracted to things that have a message embedded in them in some way.
Sure. But I was just about to say, like, I'm just like visualizing the art as you're calling out the names. I'm like, there's so many words. It's beautiful. At least you're consistent, right?
One would hope. One would hope.
Have you always dealt specifically with a gallery, or have you had the ability to get to know the artists and build relationships on that side?
Oh no, I mean, I have a few relationships with artists now, just because of friends introducing me to friends. And so Deborah Cass and her wife, Patricia Cronin, and I, we are very good friends. That is what inspired me to buy the piece by Deb, but I would have likely bought it anyway. Recently become friendly with Marilyn Minter, but I would hardly say she's my friend. I'd love to be
Right.
more
I
friends,
understand.
but we're definitely friendly, and I really, really like and respect her a great deal. But no, mostly I buy art at auction, or occasionally through a place like Art Space. I like Art Space very much, but primarily auction.
I know we're getting short on time. Just like off the top of your head, is there one specific conversation over the course of these years that really you kind of carry with you the most? Was it that David-lee-Roth conversation? Or was there another one that really kind of touched you?
I think I would say it would have to be David's. Well, that and also Danny Shapiro's comment to me, but it was off air. We weren't talking about this in our interview, but her notion that confidence was overrated, and that really piqued my interest because I was always up until that point thinking that confidence was the holy grail, and instead she felt that it was overrated, and what was much more important was the confidence to step into the uncertainty that you needed to be able to handle in order to do something brand new and somewhat
Wow.
terrifying. And that is something that I've also held very close to me ever
So
since.
instead of hubris, facing challenges head on.
Well, really just stepping into the unknown, having the courage to step into the unknown. And I've since come to believe that courage is the birthplace of confidence, and confidence is really created by the successful repetition of any endeavor, and that beginning that endeavor is what sets you on that path.
Absolutely. Well, Debbie, I know we're just about out of time. I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me today. I got through the majority of the book. It's Why Design Matters, and it's beautifully designed inside. It's a real testament to your 17 years of hard work with your podcast, And I really encourage, anyone listening to check it out.